Hello there, friends. Welcome to another episode of Brown Bags and Bibles, where we break down life's biggest befuddlements with biblical basics. Scott Wakefield, lead pastor at First Christian Church of Greene County, joined as always by
Mark Liebert, one of the elders serving with Scott at the church here.
We're doing Christianity and new religious movements. We have done quite a few.
We have been through seven of 10.
Many of the major world religions.
Oh, yes, covered those.
And now we are moving into cult world.
Yeah, I think we did 6 world religions.
6.
And now we're into cults or new religious movements. We have 10. We've done 7. I'm trying to keep myself on track.
This is 13th of our series of many. Yeah. And we're going to talk about Scientology.
Yes, so this is... we're looking at 2 religious movements that come out of each of the major world religions. So Jainism, Sikhism came out of Hinduism. Baha'i and Nation of Islam came out of Muslim background. Mormonism and Jehovah's Witness sort of coming out of a Christian background. And now we're on the second and last of our pagan new religious movements. We did Wicca, and this is Scientology. The reason Dr. Cooper, and we're using his book, Christianity and New Religious Movements, holding it here. The reason he calls this pagan, in case you're wondering what that means, it's an elusive and catch-all term for a variety of new religious movements that don't correspond precisely to the classical religions like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. Like, where do you put Wiccan Scientology?
Right.
So since it doesn't fit well, he puts it into pagan new religious movements. So again, we're using his book, his content. We've added to it, but very helpful book. I always want to give credit where it's due. Christianity and New Religious Movements, Dr. Derek Cooper.
And if you are tracking with that book alongside us, yeah, that's what I meant to say, I think. We're in chapter 8 of that book.
Okay.
Scientology, the story of clarity. So he calls it.
Right. Yeah.
As they report for themselves. So Scientology, world's youngest religion.
There you go.
I didn't know that. I didn't think of it that way.
That's what he says, yeah.
Founded by L. Ron Hubbard, which is a name that many folks, if you're, older than 45 to 50-ish, would probably know.
He was a science fiction writer.
Wrote a lot.
Oh my goodness, he wrote a lot. We'll get to that in a minute.
They claim to have millions of followers. However, most estimated to be no more than 50,000.
That's a big disparity.
That's super interesting.
It is, yes.
That says something if you ask me.
For that stat, Scott, I had to look up multiple websites. Like, how many are there really? And it just kept coming. Multiple places, like, they claim millions. Nah, it's not millions. It's maybe hundreds, thousands. Nah, not even likely that. And a lot said 50,000 maybe.
Yeah. It's interesting how much they don't want to say.
Right. Yeah.
And which is akin to saying what I'm about to, which is this is one of the most controversial religions or religious movements in the world.
Yeah. In fact, most people only know about it because of the famous celebrities who follow it. So you can probably think of some, but we'll have a few names for you here.
Yep. Tom Travolta, John Cruise. I'm just kidding. Tom Cruise, John Travolta, Sonny Bono. I had forgotten about Sonny Bono, as in Sonny and Cher. Jenna Elfman. I'm pretty sure I know who that is. Elizabeth Moss and Kirstie Alley. Yeah. I had forgotten about Kirstie Alley. Yeah.
And many of the teachings of Scientology are kept secret, even from members of the religion. You have to advance to a certain level before they give you more information.
Yeah.
Especially level 3. Level 3 is where you will eventually, purportedly from people who've gone through it, where you find out their creation story, their beginning story, which we'll tell you in a minute. You don't learn that till you get to level 3. So most of these things can only be found either on the internet or by former members who've come out of it.
There's a lot of that. Yeah. Leah Remini.
I didn't know that.
Remini.
Sure, I know who that is.
Yeah. She has a lot about that kind of stuff. So, creation story.
Yeah, this is interesting.
And this is their story of creation. How did reality come to be?
Although some of them officially deny this story. It's interesting. I was reading that. But nonetheless, this came from those who've gone through it. So this is what they've said.
95 million years ago, there were 76 planets with 200 billion people on each, which meant there are too many people to sustain.
Yeah, that's a lot of people when you think that we're approaching 8 billion on planet Earth. 200 billion on one planet's a lot.
It is. However, have you looked at some of those kinds of stats that say, hey, here's how much we could actually hold?
Yeah.
It's way, 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 way more than anybody
is.
thinks it is.
Every time you fly in a plane, look at how much empty space there is.
It's unbelievable how, well, let me just say this real quick how wrong zero population growth talk and scaremongering was for a number of decades.
Yes.
Anyway, so because of all those 200 billion people on every one of the 76 planets 95 million years ago, the head of the Galactic Confederation, Xenu, Xenu, decided to implement a controversial strategy and took billions of his planet's inhabitants on spaceships and imprisoned them on Earth.
Specifically, he placed them at the base of volcanoes, and then he ignited a hydrogen bomb, which erupted over them, causing their bodies to melt and be separated from their souls, which
is significant.
Souls is a real key idea. They don't call it soul. They call it theta. It's the life force. We'll get into that. It's the spirit part of you. And so these bodiless creatures became spiritual nomads on Earth who wanted to enter human bodies, and many of them have. Sometimes they say thousands in one person. They attach themselves to human bodies.
Yeah, it's interesting how much there are creation stories and myths and ways of talking about the world, and I'm using the myth in the way to say that's
sure
not the good myth like C.S. Lewis. We'll have inhabiting earth and body, spirit body, something like a condescending into a body kind of story. However, nothing could be done about the billions of Thetans that were yearning for the humans to inhabit them. And this Xena, Xena, the warrior princess is what I was thinking.
Not same.
Xenu was convicted of crimes against humanity and is still currently imprisoned.
Yeah.
Which meant that nothing could be done about the billions of Thetans yearning for humans to inhabit.
Yeah. That is, until one man of great intellect and bravery found a way to free humans of these body Thetans, and his name was
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yes.
I'm having a hard time reading through all of this.
Well, I understand. So I had to wrap my mind around this. So I looked up another website, and it explains it this way. It says the Thetans, or the souls of these victims, devolved into body Thetans, and body Thetans torment modern humans by attaching themselves to them. They torment them. So part of the goal of Scientology is to release the grip of these body Thetans.
That's the clarity piece.
Yeah, which is interesting. It reminded me of the Gadarene demoniac, where if you remember the story, Scott obviously knows, where if you remember the story, this Gadarene demoniac was filled with a legion of demons. Jesus cast them out, but they wanted some physical body to inhabit. They went into the pigs. They rushed off the cliff. They all drowned.
We need somewhere to go.
Right.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that.
Yeah.
So think of it in those terms. These are wicked, tormenting, soul-like things that attach themselves to bodies to the detriment of their human host. And one of the goals is to rid yourself of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully that's helpful.
So that's its creation story. Here are historical origins, talking about L. Ron Hubbard, who was 1911 to 1986. Those were his years. He moved frequently as a child because his father was in the Navy. At an early age, he was interested in psychology and human thought and potential, which made sense in that time. There was a big, not that that's gone away, but he traveled outside the U.S. where he was exposed to exotic cultures and spiritual traditions, and in 1930 began studying at George Washington University, but eventually dropped out because he was bored by class and he lived for adventure. So he began writing imaginative fiction, became a pilot, led students on boat excursions. That sounds actually like
he was actually a pretty cool adventure.
A pretty fun existence, actually. Yeah. Writing imaginative fiction, becoming a pilot, and I lead students on boat excursions.
Yeah.
Then he took a job as a pulp fiction author, specializing in westerns, fantasies, and science fiction. So some of what we read earlier makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Pulp fiction is for mass market. Westerns, fantasies, and science fiction that became a big thing for a while. So,
Keep going, doing great.
enlisted in the Navy during World War II, eventually commanded various ships, however, struggled with mental and physical illnesses, spending months in a naval hospital. Doctors couldn't find anything wrong, and he claimed to have rehabilitated himself.
This is important now.
And he began helping fellow patients whose mental health had suffered during the war.
Remember, he's interested in psychology. He wants to help people who are struggling mentally and emotionally and psychologically.
And that's how you'll hear a lot of their talk today.
It's a lot of the focus.
And all of this experience laid the groundwork for much of these concepts that later became Scientology. He also became familiar with the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, which is an esoteric society.
Secret society.
Secret society, the magical group that was led by Aleister Crowley that influenced Gerald Gardner, who is the father of Wicca.
So there's a connection to our last episode.
So there's a connection. Yes. Learned magical practices. He learned hypnosis. He learned secret rituals. However, today Scientology officially disputes any influence of that esoteric secret society stuff on their modern day practices.
After the war, still working for the Navy, he published his findings about the human mind. His first major work, and you've probably heard of this, was called Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, 1950.
Wow.
Yes. Gained notoriety from that book almost instantly. And so he established Dianetics research centers in the U.S., which were about this idea called auditing. Now, auditing is not taking a class for free in college in his mind. Auditing is one-on-one counseling that clears, and they talk about going clear, clearing the bad experiences that the mind has accumulated. Got to clear yourselves of that negativity. So he was an immediate success, although the movement itself went bankrupt a couple years later in 1952.
Yeah.
But coming out of the failure of Dianetics as a philosophy, he created Scientology as a religion a year later in 1953. I'll let you take back over there.
Grew throughout the 50s with books, media campaigns, publishing in international centers, and turning Dianetics into a religion in 53 offered many benefits for them. Tax-exempt financial status, sure. No requirement to prove that any of it actually works, which is a feature of that kind of thing. Changing customers into lifetime members, and protection from claims of mental instability and erratic behavior.
Which he was accused of.
Yep. So he legally actually created 3 different churches in 53, the Church of American Science, the Church of Spiritual Engineering, and the Church of Scientology, which we know today as the one that won out. The Church of Scientology opened in LA in 54, but then quickly set up international bases. Dianetics was a very popular book. Meaning, how did he have the funds to do international bases?
Right.
Yeah. He was the executive director who lived in D.C. and then Sussex, England, traveled frequently delivering lectures from Australia to India. However, controversy soon followed with the IRS revoking their tax-exempt status. I had forgotten that. Yeah. Many foreign countries similarly disputed their claims to be a religion and investigated them. And as they do today, common, very, very common. Scientology is defending itself constantly with lawsuits.
I think Dr. Cooper says it's about the most litigious organization in the world. Yeah.
Meaning they are the ones. They're not just
recipients
do
of
defending
lawsuits.
themselves,
Yeah.
right? But they're defending itself by making lawsuits happen.
Right.
It's super common.
Yeah. So Hubbard responded to all of this criticism by creating a naval order. Remember, his background in the Navy, ships, etc. He created a naval order within Scientology called Sea Organization, or it's just called Sea Org today. Sea Org consists of the most dedicated members of the organization. They sign literally million-year contracts or billion-year contracts because of their view of life to remain in the religion. But this is like the core. These are the hardcore members of this religion.
Who conveniently are on a ship in the middle of the sea, middle of the ocean, that, escapes legal, political, tax issues. It's kind of its own little thing.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, the Sea Org order settled in Clearwater, Florida, where it remains as the training hub today. I have been there. Hubbard reorganized the church in the 80s into two entities, Church of Scientology International, oversees all the churches, and then the Religious Technology Center, which oversees doctrine and licensing. Then he retreated in paranoia, living his remaining years in a motorhome in the California desert.
Yeah.
When he died, he left behind an empire of churches, publications, training centers, property, and for the organization, a bad reputation that is also subject to countless lawsuits.
Current leader who stepped into the void is David, how would you pronounce this?
Miscavige.
Miscavige.
I think that's how they say it.
Miscavige.
Miscavige.
Born in 1960, still alive today. He was a high school dropout in the U.S., joined Sea Org, remember that core, joined Sea Org at the age of 16, quickly climbed the ranks and became the sole leader in his 20s. He is no less controversial than L. Ron Hubbard was. He, too, is the the source of investigation and lawsuits, but he rallied the members, he beautified buildings, he highlighted celebrities, he battled any disputes. Effectively, he has maintained control and expanded the movement and established Scientology strongly.
Mm-hmm. Today, it's known for impressive buildings worldwide, especially around L.A. That's where most Scientologists live in Los Angeles. Holding back from saying things about that. It's also known for its library. Hubbard holds the world record for books by one author.
Think about that.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. Guinness World Record, most books by one sole author, L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah.
They have training courses, aggressive tactics toward members, and lawsuits toward outsiders.
Right, but the core is about enrolling seekers in a labyrinth of books, courses, and truths with the promise.
For which you pay.
Oh, you pay.
Dearly.
You absolutely pay.
Financially and otherwise.
What do they promise? What is the hope?
Clear mind.
Right.
And no body problems from those
Thetans.
Demonic Thetan type things.
Clarity of mind, removal of the Thetans. But there are three levels within Scientology: the public level, the staff level, and the Sea Org level. Public, ordinary people who, as Scott said, pay for courses on things like relationships, work, happiness. Mm-hmm. Staff, people who are paid by the religion, but they have to study and learn a lot.
I wonder how many are paid.
Yeah. And then the core of Sea Org. This is the elite clergy, you could call them. And Cooper says they sign billion-year contracts and devote themselves to Scientology.
When we say our people are all in, we mean it.
They mean it. Yeah. He says you may recognize the Sea Org because they wear military-like uniforms.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And they are all in. They work every waking moment for very little. Mm-hmm. And they are to recruit others.
Yeah.
By the way, we will give away Bibles for free in case anybody's wondering. You don't. I mean, if you need one and want one,
that's right.
We can supply those from people who give voluntarily.
That's right. We're going to get into all that, Scott.
So, speaking of holding the world record for books and writings, what we have here in the notes, it says Scientology is a religion of books. That's good.
Yeah, that's Cooper's words. He says it's a religion of books.
And Hubbard is the only source of all of that.
Right. All their beliefs, practices, doctrines, everything. So we mentioned he holds the world record for most books by one sole author. So
we're not going to name them all.
Not all of them, but Cooper names some key ones in order of when they came out and what truths they claimed to reveal. So let's name some of those.
Yeah, Dianetics, we talked about that first. There are a few versions or volumes of a number of these books, but Dianetics has 3 here from 48, 50, and another one in 50. Dianetics, the original thesis. Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. Dianetics, the evolution of a science. And I think that one is the most, well, I'm not sure. I think the version I've had on my shelf maybe has all 3 of them. I can't remember.
Okay. So what were in these books?
So these are the books that lay the basis of auditing, clearing the mind of bad stuff and experiences to discover your real identity. That's the whole.
It is.
The whole thing. Auditing clears the mind of bad experiences to reveal the true, your real identity.
You can see how this would appeal to the popular masses.
I almost said that earlier, but I thought we'll get into it. That's it.
Sure.
For sure.
Because there's some truth here. We all are influenced by the modern word's trauma, but it's things done to us, things we've done to others. Let's call it biblical sin.
Yep.
Sin that's been done to us or by us that impacts us to this day.
Yep.
You can call it baggage. You can call it a lot of things.
Sure.
So there's some truth here.
Yes, indeed. He thought he had made a scientific breakthrough that others would welcome and embrace.
Yeah. That he thought he would be welcomed by the establishment like, this is what human flourishing depends on.
All of humanity finally has seen that I've been the one. I've discovered it. I am the one.
The door.
Yes. However, no great surprise to us, I would think. The opposite reaction happened, and he began to distrust the establishment.
That's where his paranoia began with.
And he moved toward being a religion then, drawing from many Eastern traditions, alternative spiritualities, science fiction, reincarnation, past life memories, supernatural powers.
Yeah, the most looking at this see this change from a philosophy to a religion because you get away with more and you have less controversy if you call yourself a religion. But anyway.
Yeah, you don't actually have to prove anything.
No, you don't.
Which we mentioned before, but I think it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And that can be true of any faith or religious practices, as it would be of us. Yeah. But we do talk about proofs and evidences in any field of study and in people's personal lives a lot.
Yeah. So far, his early books are mainly about this auditing, clearing the mind, discovering your true self. Mm-hmm. But then it starts to take a twist that's a little more weird.
Science of Survival in 51, Scientology, History of Man 52, introduces key beliefs about thetans and the source of all human problems.
Yeah, this is where the thetans start to get in. And we'll and when we get into their beliefs, we'll talk more about what the thetans are. For now, it's sort of like the life force, but
Scientology 8-80, 880 in 52, and then 8008 in 52. He explains how thetans create energy, become nothing, yet expand their universe to infinity.
Yeah, so Dr. Cooper explained the zero is nothing. So thetans can reduce themselves to nothingness, that's zero, but they can also expand their universe to infinity, which is symbolized by 8. So that's where these 8-80 and 8-8008 are coming from. It's about nothingness and infinity.
They should be turned this way
instead
of straight up, of
That's
course.
Right. Yeah.
Next, in 54, the creation of human ability. Dianetics 55, ! In 54. Scientology, the fundamentals of thought in 56. These books make comparisons between other religions and Scientology,
right,
and explains the exteriorization of thetans outside the body and describes life as a game.
Yeah, we'll talk about this exteriorization idea again. When we get into the beliefs, there's this idea you have to separate theta, the life force, from anything related to matter, space, energy, time, the physical.
You have to do that in order to be actually clear.
Right. That's part of being clear.
Yeah.
Describing life as a game is interesting. Yeah.
And then there were lots of recordings and lectures and films. He recorded 450 lectures from 61 to 66 called St. Hill Special Briefing Course Lectures.
That's when he was in England.
He also wrote dozens of scripts that were filmed for training Scientologists.
Dr. Cooper points out one of the very unique things about Scientology, since it's so young, everything is recorded. It's documented. It's filmed. It's visual. It's media. You don't have that with other religions because it was either verbal or just written down. He lived in the age when everything could be recorded.
Which, if it's truth insofar as it is, and might have some, even if a little speck here and there, insofar as it's truth, it would be helpful and good.
Sure.
But insofar as it's not good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, so Scott, we're about 25 minutes in. You want to keep going or you want to do a second episode?
We are about halfway-ish through, so let's do a second and talk about beliefs because there's a lot of
So
that.
if you're waiting for the second episode, sorry you have to wait a couple weeks. We try to break these up into no more than 30 minutes each.
But go ahead and buy the book if you don't have it. And
this book, not his book.
No.
Like Dianetics.
Not Dianetics, 55, ! Written in 54.
Yes, buy Christianity and New Religious Movements by Dr. Derek Cooper if you can't wait for our next episode.
Yeah, which I'm sure there are throngs of people.
Sure.
The publisher of this book is going to be like, man, what happened over there at First Christian Church? P&R Publishing is going to be like, wow.
All right, until next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.